As you guys probably remember, on Tuesday night during Joe Biden's State of the Union address, he addressed the fact that Republicans, some of them at least, have the wrong view on Medicare and Social Security, different specifics within that. And one of the things he referenced was Rick Scott's plan. He didn't say his name explicitly during the State of the Union, and he has since clarified who he was talking about. But the plan that Rick Scott has put forward, called Rescue America Plan or something to that effect, that would sunset all federal programs after 5 years if they're not reauthorized by Congress, meaning programs like Medicare, Social Security, Medicaid would be threatened every 5 years, and that would be a disaster. Well, I have an update on that story, and it's an interesting one, which is that Mitch McConnell, during an interview recently, admitted, yeah, Rick Scott put forward that plan. That's not what all the Republicans want, but essentially said Biden was right. He didn't use that wording, but acknowledged that there is a Republican that put forward this plan that would sunset all federal programs after 5 years, which is what Biden referenced. And there are more examples that we've gone through in past segments of Republicans with bad views on Medicare and Social Security, cutting them, reforming them, as they say. And so we will look at that Mitch McConnell clip in a second here. But first, to remind you, here's the moment from the State of the Union on Tuesday night where Biden got booed by Republicans, all of them pretending they were so shocked that he would ever say this, even though he was correct.
Some of my Republican friends want to take the economy hostage. I get it, unless I agree to their economic plans. All of you at home should know what those plans are. Instead of making the wealthy pay their fair share, some Republicans want Medicare and Social Security to sunset. I'm not saying it's a majority. Let me give you, anybody who doubts it, contact my office. I'll give you a copy. I'll give you a copy of the proposal. That means Congress doesn't vote. Well, I'm glad to see you. And I tell you, I enjoy conversion. You know what I mean?
Okay, so you remember, and they acted like they just could not even imagine any Republican doing such a thing, proposing such a thing. Well, now the leader of the Republicans in the Senate is admitting, yeah, Rick Scott, that's who, absolutely. Take a look.
The Republicans want to sunset Social Security and Medicare. So is that true?
Well, unfortunately, that was the Scott plan. That's not a Republican plan. That was the Rick Scott plan. The Republican plan, as I pointed out last fall, if we were to become the majority, there were no plans to raise taxes on happy American people or to sunset Medicare or Social Security.
So, pretty significant there, agreeing with what Biden said there. And we walked through a number of different individuals, but I also want to touch on during this segment, Mike Lee, Senator Mike Lee, who the camera cut to during this moment from the State of the Union, and he had shock on his face. How dare Biden say such a thing? Well, now I have a split screen for you from Midas Touch of Mike Lee's face acting all shocked and offended by what Biden said, and then a clip of him when he was running for Senate in 2010 saying, my ultimate goal with all of this is to just completely root out, get rid of Social Security.
It will be my objective to phase out Social Security, to pull it up by the roots and get rid of it. Here, people who advise me politically always tell me that's dangerous, and I tell them, in that case, it's not worth my running. That's why I'm doing this, to get rid of that. Medicare and Medicaid are of the same sort and need to be pulled up. It will be...
Okay, and listen, that was over 10 years ago. He totally could have had his views changed, but it is funny since his face was particularly shocked looking that he previously said his whole point for getting into the race for a senator at that period in time was to get rid of programs like Social Security, Medicare, and it goes on. And then finally, just to give another example, Ron Johnson recently calling Social Security a legal Ponzi scheme. Take a look.
That's why what I've talked about, for the first time around in 2010, I just laid out the reality of Social Security. It's a legal Ponzi scheme. It is. I mean, it's a pay-as-you-go system.
And I was like, privatizing Social Security, that was like the worst thing in the world. Well, had we done it back then, Social Security might be in a more stable position for younger workers.
That's why what I've talked about.
So, saying that it would have been better if we had privatized Social Security in the past, which is not correct. Privatizing Social Security would be a disaster and would threaten that program, and similar, when you're talking about a similar proposal with other important programs, would be horrible. And just very recently, Ron Johnson is saying, if we'd done it previously, workers would have been in a better place. And Biden has a message for individuals talking about this, as you'll see here.
They don't. I don't know who they think they are. We saw on Tuesday night Republicans don't like me being called out on this. They were not very happy with me pointing this out. But their words speak. Look, I know that a lot of Republicans, their dream is to cut Social Security and Medicare. Well, let me say this. If that's your dream, I'm your nightmare.
So there it is. He is your nightmare, Ron Johnson, Mike Lee, possibly, and definitely Rick Scott. Thank you so much for watching. If you want to be a part of what makes this show possible, plus get access to the full video version of the show hours before all the clips are uploaded to YouTube, plus get the full bonus show every single Saturday, you can do so by going to patreon.com/Luke Beasley. That's patreon.com/Luke Beasley. Link in the description.